2024 is a big year here at KTIV. We are celebrating 70 years on the air. Throughout the year, we'll be bringing you special reports looking back at KTIV's 7-decade history. KTIV's Al Jones has been here for more than half of those 70 years, and he starts us off this evening with a look at KTIV's very beginning.
The ball got rolling in December 1953 when William Perkins and Dietrich Dirks jointly applied for a license for KTIV. Perkins was publisher of the Sioux City Journal and its sister radio station, KSCJ. Dirks was president of KCOM Radio, which later became KMNS. The application was approved the following month, and 10 months after that, in October of 1954, KTIV went on the air from its basement studio at 10th and Grandview.
At that time, no one really knew exactly what you need to go on with television.
The man who shouldered the responsibility for building KTIV was the station's first chief engineer, the late Al Smith. He recounted the origins of Channel 4 in this interview, done after KTIV moved to its current Signal Hill location in 1976.
Some of the larger cities had quite elaborate setups, and they'd been in the business for a while, but out here, RCA come up with a package that would get you on the air, and it's called the Basic Buy, and that's what we used at our studio setup. They figured out what we should have and pretty much gave us a wiring diagram and everything. Says, put this stuff together and you got a television station.
2 black and white studio cameras, a Videocon film camera, slide projector, and a 4-track audio mixer.
The staff, well, some of the people came over from KCOM, and some came over from KSCJ. I would say we probably had 6 or 7 engineers, and I would say 25 or 30 people, something or another, to start with.
They had hoped to be on the air in time to carry the 1954 World Series, but they hit a snag. The microwave path between the downtown studio and the transmitter out in the country was blocked.
And it seemed like there was a tree about a mile or 2 away from the studio, which was very greatly attenuating, reducing our signal. Add another 20-foot tower in order to get over that tree.
And with that done, KTIV was on the air 70 years ago this year. In Sioux City, Al Jones, KTIV News 4.
In 1954, KTIV was on the air for 6.5 hours each day. The first year, the station broadcast with 50,000 watts of power. That was increased to 100,000 watts the following year after it became clear that Channel 4's signal would not interfere with stations in Des Moines, Sioux Falls, or Omaha.